I mean, you wouldn't even know. You've never had one. What is going on, Stokastic baseball fans? We're having a passionate debate behind the scenes here about whether spicy drinks are good, most specifically, whether Bloody Marys are good. I'm a big fan, I've got to say. Our pal Tyler Zander behind the virtual glass here has never had one, claims that he doesn't have them because he's young. I find them to be a great early morning drink, like when you want to get banged up early in the morning. Bloody Mary. If you're already hungover, pretty good drink to get you over the hangover, get your engine started again, a little dirty oil in the system. Gun didn't seem too intrigued by the old spicy drinks here, but he's here to talk us through the baseball slate at least. So we'll give him that much credit. Gun, how you doing? And why do you not like spicy drinks?
I've never tried a spicy drink, but it feels like I've never tried alcohol, but there's this spicy.
I forgot about that.
There's like spicy Mountain Dew that's going viral or something like that. And it just feels like no, because if I have something spicy, I want to drink. And if the drink is spicy, that just seems like it's a cycle of death. So I no, thank you.
All right. Well, like I said, it is like having it's like a tomato sauce. It's like it's a tomato juice. But I mean, that's what I can, make it akin to for somebody who's probably had a spicy tomato sauce on some pasta in his life, I would imagine at least. No,
maybe
no,
that's not the same. That's not the same. That's you're putting on.
I start to worry about you, Gun. But granted, you live in Texas, so I mean, where's the good Italian food around you anyway?
Okay, but spicy. That's all these people eat.
All right, so we've got a good baseball slate lined up. I just got done doing the NASCAR show. I'm playing a little bit of catch up. Are there any major changes from earlier in the day that I need to be aware of? Are there any weather spots? And then what's your overarching thoughts about this slate as we get started on this show, Gun?
There's a little bit of weather. The Minnesota game looks like it has a splash of keep an eye on it. Itis. I don't know what I was going with. And then the overarching thoughts is I have a lot of stacks. Like this is not one of those slates where I just believe in 2 or 3 teams. So I'm my first crunch. I was spread out pretty thin. We do get some upper echelon pitching options, so I can kind of stay concentrated there. But it does seem like a wide open slate.
Yeah, it seems like, you mentioned there's a couple premium pitching options, but it seems like it thins out really fast. That's something I was looking at earlier in the day. So I think that kind of jibes with the idea that there's a bunch of different stacks that we can get to here. So it'll be a good one to talk through. We'll talk pitching. We'll go through game by game, talk about the different hitting situations. We're brought to you by OddsShopper, our pals over at OddsShopper, our sister site. We'll talk a little bit more about OddsShopper later on. Make sure you hit the like and the subscribe for us, fellas and ladies out there. We appreciate that. Helps us out a great deal. Helps you find out when we go live, when we've got DFS offers, giveaways, much more. I don't know necessarily the difference. I guess DFS offers is like one of our promos, one of our sponsors, like we'll talk about with the MLB live promo a little bit later. And then giveaways is when we're just giving stuff away, I guess. But I've always wondered what the difference between those two was, and much more. I'm not even sure what the much more is either, but you find out about all of it by hitting the subscribe. Once you hit the subscribe, hit the notification so you get those alerts. Check out free ownership projections for this MLB slate over at the site. And we've also got free content, free DraftKings MLB night slates the rest of the season, 100% free over on the site. So all the great tools, the ownership, the projections, the top stacks, top pitchers for those 2-gamer, 3-gamer, 4-gamer night slates that start like 9:45 on the East Coast. Those are all 100% free. So if you're debating about whether you want to join Stokastic, jump over there, play some of those night slates. They can be really profitable, and our tools are killer for them, and they're 100% free the rest of the season. All right, let's talk about some baseball, Gun. First game up on deck, Tigers against the Rangers. Eduardo Rodriguez going for the Tigers, back in the rotation here. There was a little bit of discussion about him in our Discord earlier today, so I'm curious to see what you think of him. Not really drawing all that much attention for fairly cheap pricing. And then Dallas Keuchel on the other side for the Rangers. What do you think of Eduardo Rodriguez off the top here?
So his last couple of minor league appearances were stretched out starts, 5 and 6 innings. And he showed some strikeout stuff 2 starts ago, 11 strikeouts in 6 innings. And then he was a strikeout per inning last game, but he also had 3 walks. And that's just kind of the story of Eduardo Rodriguez baseball. Yep. Early in the season to start, we weren't seeing him missing any bats. So we don't really know what to expect from him. The Rangers team does have some attackable bats in this lineup for strikeouts against lefties. I'm looking at 4 guys since the beginning of last year with over a 30% K rate against lefties. So there is some merit in taking this risk here. But I think you have to understand that you really don't know what to expect at the end of the day when it comes to Erod. And that's just like I said, that's just kind of been who Erod is. He has a good upside, but sometimes he can cave in.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying to one of our regulars, XX Cubs fan in the old Discord. There is, it's just so very Erod, right? It's just, you can go to it, you can't really totally rely on it. He's like the unluckiest guy in baseball over an extended period of time. So just not a ton of faith, but certainly enough upside where I think for 8,200, 2.9% owned on FanDuel, you can double that easily enough, go to 5-6%, and you basically double the field, and you're not really taking a huge risk there. And I think there's a little bit of upside. What about Keuchel on the other side? A guy I think, over time was a better real life pitcher than a DFS pitcher, and now just certainly not really doing much. 50 2/3 for the season, 15% strikeout rate, a 4.72 xFIP. That said, 5,700 on DK. Is there any reason to go there? Is there enough upside for him against one of the worst teams in baseball?
Bad hitters beat bad pitching, man. I just don't see the swing and miss ability here. He is on the tail end of his career. He's had over a 5 expected ERA since the beginning of last year. The strikeout stuff isn't there. Without strikeout stuff, you really don't have a ceiling unless you steal like a CGSO or something like that. So I don't intend to have any Keuchel. 5,700, you treat it as a baseball bat. If you get you home run points, good for you, man. But I don't think I'm gonna be there for tonight.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. And it's just, I see it as more, if Dallas Keuchel goes out and has a great game baseball wise against this team, it's more likely that he struck out 3, kept them to, 1 or 2 runs, kept the ball on the ground and just got through a few clean innings. Then he went out and struck out 8 or 9 of these guys. So I just don't see it there. That said, I think maybe Keuchel's overtime ability to keep the ball down might limit my expectations on going to the Tigers. It does look like they're drawing some attention in the middle of that lineup on the DK slate around Victor Reyes, Javi Baez, Eric Haas, all in the 10+% range on DK. Only Javi Baez really drawing attention on the FanDuel slate. What are you doing with the Tigers? Do you have a little bit more interest in them than I do, or are you seeing it similar?
Baez and Haas, I like pre-flop. Like you said, though, they are getting some eyeballs on them. But with Baez specifically, really both of them, we're talking 25-30% K rates. But when they do make contact against particularly left-handed pitching, 230 plus ISO for the both of them. So this is a good opportunity for them to make contact. Keuchel has been a ground ball guy, but he's also been kind of unlucky. I don't want to say unlucky, but he's also allowed homers. Last year, almost a 1.5 homer per 9 to righties. This year, over 2. Usually doesn't correlate with a 50% ground ball rate, so we would naturally expect regression. But you let a Baez or a Haas make contact, and Keuchel will. I'm willing to take some shots on them, especially on FanDuel. They're pretty cheap.
Sure. And he's always been a guy who's given up the hard hit. It's just about where the launch angle comes in. And over time, he's been good at keeping it down. But yeah, those ones that get away from him do tend to get hit pretty hard. And there is a lot of hard hit around a guy like Eric Haas. So that's an interesting call. I don't dislike that. What about on the other side? You mentioned all the strikeout potential for Erod in this lineup, but there's certainly a couple good power hitters and decent bats to chase on the Rangers side. And they're not really drawing that much attention against a guy who's not an extreme ace or anything like that, tends to be very unlucky, tends to have a really inflated batting average on balls in play. Are you going to the Rangers side of this one? And if so, how much?
Yeah, a little bit. I don't have a crunch with numbers yet, but I am interested in the top of that order. 1 through 5 specifically. Matthias is on the top of my bomb detector. He was there as well yesterday, and he homered.
Okay.
and I usually don't pay too much attention to low sample, but that caught my eye. And then since the All-Star break, Nate Lowe is pretty much the best baseball player on the planet. I don't know if you've been tracking that. It's insane what he's done since the All-Star break.
Better than Albert Pujols?
I think so. It's been incredible. So some sneaky names here that the rest of the field may not particularly be on. But it's also just if you are invested in Erod, maybe more than the field, an insurance policy against him he's usually the ultimate insurance policy guy to pick on. It's go off or get crushed here. So I would hang out with 1 through 5, and I'd keep Matthias just because he's got some big power models, but it is low sample.
Okay. I like it. Makes a ton of sense to me. And like I said, they're not really drawing any ownership at all. 3% for the top end on both sites. and then sub 1 for everybody below, 4 and below. Easy stack to get to. I think there's some upside there. You could get the Big Erod game. You could get the nice Rangers game. So like I said, solid Scumdacker spot, solid spot to grab some insurance. Let's move on. Reds versus the Nationals. The Reds, Luis Sessa on the hill for the Reds and Paulo Espino going for the Nationals. Two very cheap pitchers. Sessa getting a little bit of projection in my model, but I don't really believe in it. Espino, I know for sure is not any good. Any reason to go to Luis Sessa here, or are you going to either one of these pitchers?
No, I'm not going to either. Sessa, I have pitch count concerns. We did get 40 pitches at him, but still didn't get past the second inning. So I just don't know that the risk reward is there. Yeah. Again, I do like a little bit of ceiling, especially on a slate like this where we do have some upside. So no for me on him, and then definitely no on Espino. Both guys 4.8 expected ERA on Espino, over 5 for Sessa. The whip is really, really high, 1.3 on Espino, almost 1.5 for Sessa. So a lot of traffic, just not enough oomph in their stuff. And both guys allowing pretty high barrel rates. So this is a offense only spot for me.
Okay, so targetable spot for offense. And when I say Sessa was getting a little bit of projection, he's 16th on my board out of the 22 pitchers. So it's just a comparative thing versus Paulo Espino. So what does that lead us into offense wise then? Are you going to the red side of the board? Looks like the top end around Fraley and India. They're two best players maybe, but not two great players necessarily. They're drawing a ton of attention. The rest of the lineup kind of thin, but again, gets worse from those two guys. So I don't love going to this team, but I think they are probably a necessity, or at least, worth getting to in some spots here. So who do you like from the Reds, and are Fraley and India overowned at the top of the lineup?
I mean, probably, but they would be the guys I would lean on, and maybe Kyle Farmer as well. Donovan Solano batting cleanup, not a bad spot to maybe scoop up a couple of RBIs. It's bad when
you really like him. You almost called him Donnie Solano.
Well, I call really he's affectionately known as Donnie Barrels. So I was gonna say that, but I didn't want Donnie Baseball.
Right. Lawsuit from the estate of Don Mattingly.
Yeah. But Donnie Barrels in the cleanup spot might be worth a click or two if you want to get to some Reds and shake it up a little bit.
Okay.
At the bottom of this lineup is really, really rough.
What about a min-price Colin Moran? Lefty bat, shown power and hard hit over, a couple years ago. Dead minimum on both sides. Multi-position on FanDuel.
Chip in a chair. It's free square. Put it with
if you're spending the minimum and you can put him at either position, you don't care. Aristides Aquino or Colin Moran?
Oh, yeah. Floor Moran. Aquino, I feel like we could strike out Aquino. They say he throws 100 miles from the outfield, so I guess that's why he's still in the league. But remember that good week he had where he was taking the league over?
That's why from time to time he still pops through. Like he's still carrying a above average home run mark in my model, despite a 26.2% hard hit and 8.3% barrel rate this year, only a 113 ISO. It's kind of weird, but that's why he's sitting right next to Moran in the lineup. I thought that was an interesting spot there. But yeah, not a lot to love through that lineup. Any Chucky Robinson for you? 5.1% on dead minimum catcher on DK. He's hitting 9th.
Yeah, I mean, if you had to get there, right? Road 9 hole isn't as menacing. These are just non-appealing names, but I because of the matchup, they'll be in the blender for me.
All right. What about the other side with the Nats? You mentioned, potentially short game for Sessa, so you get into that Reds bullpen. Definitely a lot of reason to expect some offense, but a low-end team. Who do you like from going to the Nats? Are you going full stacks here, or are you just, cherry picking guys?
So specifically against Sessa, I do like to pick on him with right-handed power. And Joey Meneses is how you say it. He's probably too cheap on FanDuel for this matchup. 200 plus ISO so far against righties, and this matchup is really, really nice for him. So I don't mind hunting him out. Your favorite player, Luke Voit, 2,600 on FanDuel. He showed some pop last night. Another strong matchup for him. Those would probably be two guys I hunt out for some power. Okay. Obviously Nelly Cruz, but
yeah, Nelson Cruz sitting in the middle there. I think Keibert Ruiz is definitely interesting, particularly on DK where you go catchers. But for 2,300, a guy hitting fifth in the middle of that lineup, only 3.5% ownership. That's an easy ownership offset for a guy with a decent stick for a catcher. So he's not totally off the board for me on the FanDuel slate either. And you get like CJ Abrams, Lane Thompson through that lineup. It's still not my favorite, but I do agree. I think they're in play. Voit, obviously the primo power bat there. 16 home runs, a 185 ISO. Enough said about less said about Luke Voit, the better. Anything else to call out from this one?
No, it's an ugly game, but the pitching seems a little uglier than the offense.
Yep, and it seems like it's going to be a part of at least a small part of a lot of people's plans here. So let's see, what do we have to talk about business wise? Stokastic MLB with promo code MLB Live. Stokastic anything really, because this promo code applies to all the different plans. If you're a new user and it's your first week, you can subscribe and get 50% off your first week of any weekly package by using promo code MLB Live, all caps, all one word. I would recommend jumping right to the platinum plan, especially with NFL starting up, with NBA and NHL not too far behind. Seems like a no-brainer to just go to the one that includes everything. But, it's not necessarily, they haven't started up just yet. So maybe there's a little bit more value for you in going just to the MLB plan and checking that out. Either way, 50% off with promo code MLB Live. So it gets you the MLB Weekly, gets you the Platinum Weekly. You can use either one. It does not include Fantasy Cruncher, but that's an easy add-on at checkout. That's always a paid add-on, guys. So check it out. Jump over to the site. Like I said, the Platinum plan's the way to go. Every single tool, every single sport that we cover. But this applies to any of the different weekly plans for a new user. So check it out. Join Stokastic Plus today. Gun, let's talk a little bit more baseball here. We'll hit the old gas pedal. We got plenty of time, though. Padres against the Royals. This is an interesting spot for pitching with Yu Darvish on the hill for the Pods. Royals answering back, not necessarily as interesting. Weird price discrepancy for Daniel Lynch. 5,900 on DK, 8,200 on FanDuel. I don't think I would have shares of him on either site. How much Yu Darvish are you getting to, though?
Right now, I'm still about 25%. Which okay. a little bit above the field and a little bit above our top stack percentage, but I'm happy. Like I said, I'll eat negative leverage from the good pitchers, and I tend to leave the scraps for the field. So I got to grab a little bit of extra of a couple of these guys, and I think Yu Darvish is certainly somebody that we've seen all year. Just go really, really deep into games and show you that he can pitch 6-7 innings. I think he's gone 6 or more innings since the Reagan administration. It's been a minute since he hasn't gone that far. So just an incredible floor. And I have more respect for the Royals than most, but man, everyone in this confirmed lineup strikes out 1 in 5 or better, and a lot of them are over 1 in 4. So this is a big. It's still a good park. It's still a good matchup for strikeouts. There is some talent here, but Yu Darvish projects and profiles pretty well here on the checklist. Yeah, a little more power upside maybe for the Royals these days, but certainly more strikeout in this lineup. And I'm not sure that the public has necessarily caught up with that, where this used to be a team where it was like, all right, they're okay at limiting strikeout. They're good at putting the ball in play. Now they're more swing for the fences type. So I think there's some sneaky strikeout upside in Darvish, probably going a little underowned at below 20% on DK and certainly below 10% on FanDuel. Feels light. So that's a spot I'm definitely targeting. Any reason to go to Daniel Lynch here? No. Yeah, I agreed. Don't see it. What about the Padres on the other side of that equation then? Top 3 hitters drawing a lot of attention. Rest of that lineup on DK, everybody, 5-ish% owned. So easy to get to over there for the Brandon Drury on down. On FanDuel, that group is owned from the 20s to the mid-teens, and then it doesn't thin out until like Jerkson Profar, Austin Nola, Jose Azocar. So what are you doing with the pods on both sides? They're a little popular. It seems like a running theme so far through a couple games is DK has some spots priced up where FanDuel does not, and this could be one of the spots where I end up coagulated on guys that I should have a ton of exposure to. But I do like Brandon Drury really on both sides. But on FanDuel at 3,300, I think that's a pretty good value in the cleanup spot. No one's off limits here. 1 through 6 would be or 2 through 6 would be the guys at the top of my food chain here. Daniel Lynch is just very, very attackable. And then Austin Nola, if he is catching today, he's one of the worst guys that throwing out base runners. So if the Royals do get on, if you guys are looking for some scrappy extra points, maybe some of the speed guys or guys that might challenge him would be in play. Bobby Witt, somebody like that. But 2 through 6 would be the bulk of my interest for a stack.
Okay, and I think that does make some sense there. So on the Well, you were just talking on the Royals side with the Bobby Witt call in terms of the speed. Any love down the rest of that Royals lineup really thins out price wise. Everybody from 4 on down is it looks like Hunter Dozier's at 23, and all those other guys are at the dead minimum on DK, and similar on FanDuel, 2,000 for O'Hearn, and then everybody 22, 21. So any love for like the back end of that Royals lineup, a little sneaky power around like a Nick Pratto, who hasn't really gotten there at the major league level yet, but does at least have that pedigree?
Yeah, Prado would probably be the guy, and the fact that he's almost free on both sides kind of helps alleviate the sting a little bit. I still got 200 plus ISO at the major league level against righties, but you and I both know that in the minors, that's kind of who he was. 858 OPS this season in the minors. So there's a chance for him to get into one, and he's min priced on DK. So I that's probably as far as I want to go in this lineup, though.
Yeah, it's not a good back end. You're going up against a primo pitcher and a guy that we're getting a lot of. For me, it's more dart throws, maybe a couple of one-offs and maybe a few minor stacks, but not really a premium target and not really a guy that I look to hedge against like what we were talking about earlier. So I think it's Darvish, some of the Padres, a little dabbling of the Royals, and no love for Daniel Lynch in this one. And we can take our business over to Houston. We'll talk about the Baltimore Orioles with Dean Kramer on the mound, mid-priced, but not really drawing any ownership attention and probably deserving of that level of pricing and popularity, going up against a ridiculously good Astros lineup. Jose Urquidy going up against a talented, but not quite there yet, I think is a fair way to put it. Orioles lineup is drawing a little bit of attention for Urquidy, 8,900 on DK, 11%, 95 on FanDuel, inflated pitcher pricing over there, 5% owned. Do you have any love for Urquidy on this slate? And then if you are getting Dean Kramer, let me know.
No on Kramer. I've pretty much grown to respect the Orioles at this stage in the season. Since the All-Star break, they've just been really, really good. So I don't like to pick on them specifically with pitchers I don't necessarily believe in. Urquidy's held a 4.6 xFIP against righties, over 4 xFIP against lefties, really since the beginning of last year, and it wasn't much better in 2020. So I have easy reservations to point at and just go the other way at this pricing, right? If he was 7K, something like that, all right, maybe there's a risk reward there for me, but I need a little bit out of 8,900 to take to the bank here, and I think this Orioles team is pretty scrappy.
Okay. So maybe a little bit over-owned for your taste, or a little bit too expensive to be that highly owned, or however it works out to make the transition here. But does that lead you into Orioles bats? Because they're really low owned here. And like we were both hinting at, I said that they're not quite there yet. You're maybe a little bit more enthusiastic about where they're at, but I think we can both totally agree. This is an up and coming team with some talented kids in this lineup now. So does that lead you to getting beyond the field on Orioles stacks?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. I am at. I punched in 8%. Okay. I believe that's well above the field.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I'm just looking at the individual ownership on my sheet here, not the team ownership, but everybody owned. In the highest owned guy on either side is Cedric Mullins at 6.9 on FanDuel because he's only 3,000. Everybody else in the ones, the halves. So very easy spot to get to, in my opinion. So is that's a spot where you're just kind of hitting the mash button?
Yeah, 1 through 5 would be the bulk of my interest, and Jorge Mateo is like one of my favorite season-long pickups. He's sneaky with the stolen bases, and every now and then I look up, he's got a homer. So 9-hole guy, don't leave him out. But yeah, I'm almost 8 times the field on Orioles here. I just think they're probably going to be a team that I stack a lot throughout the rest of the year. They're young and hungry, and they'll play up against especially teams like the Astros that are the teams to beat.
Mm-hmm. And on that FanDuel slate, I tell you what, they're cheap in addition to being extremely low owned. So that's an interesting spot there. I think I can definitely match that. Jorge Mateo, I've been calling out throughout the season. He's up to 12 home runs, 28 stolen bases. I traded for him in the Dynasty League back in I want to say like mid-May because I needed stolen bases, and it's kind of worked out. I just wish he could get on base. Only a 278 on base percentage. if he could get on base even at like a 310 clip, let alone a 325 or something actually good, God, he'd be a really good player. So interesting spot there. What about the Astros bats going up against Dean Kramer here? Looks like they're drawing some attention, but like Yuli Gurriel hitting second is not drawing any love. Alex Bregman hitting cleanup is not drawing any love. There's always ownership holes in this lineup. Jordan Alvarez gets attention, Altuve gets attention, and Kyle Tucker gets attention. Everybody else goes low owned, including Trey Mancini lurking in the 7 spot.
Yeah, I get Astros. There's very few slates where I don't end up talking myself into a circle on Astros. And Creamer, somebody that maybe benefiting a couple of homers in I think he would have had 2 more homers a Minute Maid. If you look at his batted ball data to righties, 42% fly ball rate, almost a 38% hard contact rate. I believe that this Astros team is good enough that over 1 homer per night as it is can go even higher. So I do like a lot of these righties. I'm getting really good bomb detector numbers on Altuve, Jordan Alvarez, Alex Bregman, and Tucker. Obviously, there's 2 lefties in there, but I think this is a good power spot because Creamer doesn't keep the ball on the ground. So if you're going to challenge these guys to put the ball in play, especially jump the Crawford boxes, I'll take them all. And nobody, I guess there would be some eyebrow raises on Hensley and Mauricio Dubon, but I would probably not go out of my way to X those guys out of the pool. I think this entire lineup is in play for me.
Yeah, and Dubon, especially on the FanDuel slate, minimum price, and you get him at shortstop with flexibility into the outfield. I like him better as a shortstop premium position, sure, but at min price, I can take a guy who in 206 plate appearances has at least hit me 4 home runs, stolen me 2 bases. There's minimal upside there, but as a part of this stack wraps around to the Altuves, Alvarez's of the world, it kind of works. So I don't dislike that. Let's take a look. We'll do one more game, then we'll do the next read for our good sponsor, OddsShopper. We've got the Colorado Rockies with Kyle Freeland, the lefty on the hill, going up against the Mets. Freeland, another guy, just kind of in the scrap heap for me on this one. He's cheap, but no real reason to go there. Nobody else is, so I guess he's unpopular. David Peterson on the other side, 7,500 on FanDuel, 87 on DK, drawing mid-20s attention on both sites. I think there's a lot of upside there. I'm kind of interested in Peterson here. How are you seeing David Peterson?
Yeah, he's definitely earned his the interest. 27% carry rate on the year. The whip is a little bit high for my liking if the ownership got a little too high. But the strikeout potential is absolutely there. He's coming in 11% over his top 2% chance of being a optimal play on DraftKings. So we do take some negative leverage. He's probably, I think he's the second most negatively leveraged pitcher on the slate. So by process,
is he worth that weight of negative leverage though in this spot?
Man, by process, I'm uncomfortable because the Rockies to me are a little bit better against lefties pre-flop than righties. And looking at some of these ISOs, I know, in context, of course, Grichuk, Rogers, CJ Cron, Montero, all 200, 230 plus against lefties. So it is a risk reward spot. If I did get to Peterson, it wouldn't be at the Fields rate here because of the negative leverage. And I would probably have a little bit of insurance with a couple of these Rockies stack at the bottom, but I don't believe in this Rockies team too much.
Yeah, it's a team that I don't love going to, especially outside of Coors Field. But like you mentioned, at least they're not going up against a righty. So maybe you do get a little upside. Maybe you do get a little threat for David Peterson and all that popularity. That said, I do still like the kid. 83 2/3 at 27% strikeout rate. He walks too many at 11.1%. The whip is high, but the xFIP is a 3.45. So I think there's enough talent there that I'll maybe chase it. Probably not to the Fields level, but if I'm 15 relative to the Fields 22, 25, I think I'm pretty happy with that. And then I'm just dancing around those Randall Grichuk, CJ Cron at bats where there's those premium right-handed power bats. So with that said, since you are considering the undercut on the Peterson side of things, the Rockies aren't getting any attention at all. I definitely think that they warrant more attention of ownership just as a pure play with some of those right-handed hitters at 0.5% owned, not a big price tag going up against all that ownership against a young lefty. Are you seeing that the same way? Or are you going to some Rocky stacks here? It sounded like you would.
Yeah. And you don't have to give up much to be there. We got him at a 0.6% stack ownership, 3-4% back end of 150. Even, you don't even need to get the 4% just in case all hell broke loose and they started getting into him. Go for it. Peterson does keep the ball on the ground when he does when he does suffer batted ball events. But like you said, the walk rate's up there. You start putting guys on, it creates that big inning opportunity So yeah, I think 3% is well warranted here.
Okay. And then outside of Grichuk and Crone, like who are the premium guys that you're targeting in that lineup when you are going to that those shares?
Brandon Rogers, 320 average, 230 plus ISO since the beginning of last year against lefties, and a 14% K rate. So he's a hard strikeout. Might be patient enough to draw some walks. We're not here to draw walks, but he does have some numbers there. And I also have a pretty decent WRC plus for him. So he'd probably be somebody I would remind people not to leave him out. Just 2,600 on FanDuel.
Yep. And look, walking does it gets you on base, helps you with some of that correlated scoring, that run creation. So it's not the worst skill to have in the world, but yeah, it doesn't score us a ton of DFS points necessarily. What about on the other side, the Mets going up against Freeland here? I assume you're not getting to Freeland. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's one of those guys where I have a little bit of respect for, but just from a fantasy perspective, he doesn't really offer a ton of ceiling to help me have the nuts.
Yeah, especially against a low strikeout offense like this Mets team. So does that bring you to Mets stacks? They're definitely getting more attention than the Rockies, but it looks like playable attention. A lot of guys in the single digits still.
Yeah, 1 through 5, and Eduardo Escobar, I've been saying all year against lefties, is certainly somebody that falls through the cracks. So they're in play. I like I said, Freeland is a guy that I respect enough that I'm not expecting to come out here and serve up 3 homers, but the Mets are talented enough that against the contact lefty, I want some shares of that. Mm-hmm. And then if Freeland gets a quick hook and get into that bullpen, all bets are off. And this is a really good Mets team. Starling Marte, somebody with a lot of ways to get you fantasy points. Pete Alonso, just incredible. Almost a 300 ISO. I would probably say the biggest question mark here, and I see our chat's talking about it too, is really what can we do with Darren Ruff, especially in a 5 spot, because the implied at bats, that's the tricky number to play with there for a guy that we don't know if he's going to be a pinch hit risk or not for like Vogelbach or something like that. So that's the meditation point. Do you have a lean on what we should do with Darren Ruff? Because I don't really know.
I mean, at 2,400 on FanDuel, there's 11% ownership. It looks like he's shedding a little bit of popularity over there because of that. And I think at 2,400, if you're getting the 2 plate appearances even, I think there's probably enough there. 3,300, it's, relatively the same price on DK, but he's 8.2% over there. I think it's probably still worth it. You hope for 3 plate appearances. You probably are dealing with 2 because he's hitting 5th. And you do have guys like Naquin's also not in that starting lineup too. So another lefty who they could potentially bring off the bench in a big spot if they change pitchers. So there's definitely a risk there, but I think it's worth going to, especially if you're full stack in this lineup. Like I wouldn't want to leave that bat out and then have it burn me with a home run from a guy that's kind of obvious against a lefty, at least for 2 of those plate appearances. So I think from that perspective, I would go to it. And then you mentioned Escobar back in the lineup here. No Beatty. Escobar comes back. I know he's a guy that you've gotten to throughout the season. I remember you mentioning him on a few shows. Hitting 8th, is that a guy who's in play for you?
I mean, that's even trickier than Darren Ruff when implied at bats. There's a good chance he gets 1 if things are going swimmingly. So I'll be there just to be there, a little switch hitter in the bottom of the order. But I do wish he was a little bit higher to have higher implied at bats against Freeland. He probably gets 2, but it's not a lot.
Little tricky there. All right. Yeah. So maybe, so maybe the low ownership on the back end of the Mets is a little bit justified, but I definitely think it's worth taking shots on the top end, especially on DK, where Nimmo and Lindor are both 7.6, 7.7% owned. I think that's a little bit under. So I think that's a worthy spot of taking some extra shares out. Let's look at, we got to do a quick read. What did I say it was? OddsShopper. OddsShopper, our sister site, 2 S's in the middle, OddsShopper, if you're typing it in. It's also linked from the top of the Stokastic site. There's a little tab there that says OddsShopper on it, or you can click, I'm sure, down in the description below here. Helps you make your best bets in 30 seconds or less. There's hundreds of bets featured daily. OddsShopper, it gives you the edge that you need to bet player props and game lines across all different sports. And what I really love is if you've got a bet in mind that you've been thinking about all day, you've been using the tools, you've really zeroed in on a bet. It's not sitting there. It's not going to talk you out of making the bet. It's not going to give you all this scary information about your bet. What it's going to do, it's going to tell you the best sports book to make that bet at. It compares the odds that are being offered and the prices being offered by all these different sports books and says, all right, if that's your bet, go over there and make it a BetMGM. Don't make it over at this site. It tells you the best spots to go. So OddsShopper is a killer site. It takes about 30 seconds, probably even less. It's like 3 clicks to find the best bets that you want to make. It's got a parlay builder on there. It's got an arbitrage tool that helps you identify risk-free, guaranteed profit bets across sports books. OddsShopper, 2 S's in the middle. Go check it out. I guarantee you're going to like what you find over there. Gun, let's get back to talking baseball. Diamondbacks against the White Sox. Merrill Kelly on the mound. Kelly was getting a couple questions earlier in the day in our Slack, kind of a diminished version of the White Sox lineup, kind of one of those middle of the road type pitchers. He's priced up in the 9,000s on both sites. Not a very comfy price for a Merrill Kelly, but he's not getting any ownership attention. Is there any reason to go to Merrill Kelly here?
Normally no, but man, have we seen random right-handed pitching just dominate the White Sox and become useful on slates. But typically, 21% K rate. Sure, flip a coin. Do I think it's viable here that he comes through this lineup and walks away with something usable? I think it is viable, but at 9K, man, you really are asking for a decent day at the office. So I wouldn't push back someone that had that feeling in their bad knee with the storm coming in. But right now, I don't have him in my blender.
Okay. And then on the other side of this one, Davis Martin going for the White Sox, 17.4% strikeout rate over 36 innings, 4 starts. Any love for Martin, who only cost 5,700, no ownership on DK, 63 on FanDuel, also no ownership against what is not a great Diamondbacks lineup by any means. Any love for Martin here?
His swing and strike rate doesn't make sense for the rest of his numbers.
Yeah, agreed. 12.6%.
Yeah. So there's probably some hope that we start seeing some strikeout progression or some swinging strike rate regression. So if
one of those good, one of those bad.
Yeah. So if you want to take a shot on that happening at that price point, that type of hunch that maybe a super match field tournament might pay off. In 20 or less, I'm not there. 50 or less, I'm not there. But it is something I want to watch because I do think that there's a chance he starts becoming a strikeout guy if he's going to sustain a 12.5% swinging strike rate.
Okay. Yeah, that would be interesting. But yeah, I'm with you on that. If you're building 20 lineups for a 20 max, 3 lineups, single entry, certainly maybe not the play to chase. What about the bats in this one? You going to bats on either side? I've been kind of not getting the Diamondbacks all throughout the year. I don't feel like it's really burnt me maybe 1 or 2 times. The White Sox are a team I was getting to a lot earlier in the season, but maybe a little bit less now. They're very low owned against a semi-gettable pitcher like Kelly, but I'm not sure how much I'm getting to them here. What are you doing with these 2 offenses?
I don't have dedicated stacks or onslaught stacks of either team. Romy Gonzalez is somebody that keeps projecting well. He's bare bones man in the leadoff spot. Yep. A lot of opportunity, a lot of at-bats implied there. So I don't hate leaning on him a little bit more than usual just because of the potential value. And then against Merrill Kelly specifically, he doesn't really give up power. And Davis Martin so far in the big league level has given up some power to lefties. So maybe we cherry pick a Ketel Marte or Dalton Varsho, guys like that. But it is all pretty much one-offs and substacks.
Okay. And yeah, it's, like I said, the Diamondbacks, not a team that I've been going to all that much, but yeah, if you're going there, there's Christian Walker in there, there's Varsho in there, certainly nice home run rates. Both those guys actually above the magic number in my model, as is Emmanuel Rivera up toward the top of the lineup. Rivera is drawing a little bit of attention. He's 2,600 on DK, drawing nearly 15%. Everybody else half that at best in terms of the popularity. So maybe there's a little bit of reason to draw some shares against Davis Martin, but like you said, he's kind of in the lab right now. I kind of want to see what there is with this kid. On the White Sox side of things, maybe some shares of Eloy and Jose Abreu, certainly justifiable at their pricing and not very much popularity at all. But I think that's just a spot where I'm just taking shares. I'm just kind of going back to the well with guys that I know I do believe in who aren't getting that much attention. But I don't love the surrounding part of this lineup, like the Larry Garcia, Elvis Andrus. I'm banging the drum for Elvis Andrus to just be run out of the league at this point. I don't know why this guy's still in baseball. He's had, I think in his entire career, I think it was 3 seasons with an above average WRC plus, just not a very good baseball player. So I don't love the White Sox, but I guess maybe a few shares. Anything else to call out from this one?
No, Elvis Andrus and Luke Voigt World Baseball Classic. It's going to be great. You remember when Andrus was one of the catalysts in that Blue Jays Rangers right, where he kept missing the grounders, and I don't know how he made it back to Texas in one piece, but yeah.
For sure. All right, let's move on. We've got
Still not as hated as Nelson Cruz. That guy can go die in a hole.
True.
I forgot Tyler.
Tyler's Nelson Cruz love.
Mhm.
All right, let's take a look at the other Chicago team on the board here. The Cubbies in Milwaukee to face the Brewers. Drew Smiley on the bump for the Cubs, drawing 2% ownership at 7,900 on DK. No ownership to speak of at 83. I'm not really getting there. The other guy I'm very interested in, Brandon Woodruff on the hill for the Brewers. Nearly 40% owned for 9,600 on DK. 25-ish, let's call it, at the FanDuel 10-4 price. How much Woodruff are you getting to, and are you getting any Smiley?
No Smiley. Woodruff is my highest owned pitcher. And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, man, maybe I should juice up Darvish even more, because the field is with me on Woodruff. Woodruff, We're looking at what, 40%. So good Lord, 4 in every 10. Yeah, he's a feature play tonight. But it's a great matchup. This Cubs team, tons of strikeout potential. 2 through 5, an aggregate of almost 30% K rate against righties at the beginning of last year, and an 8-9 Rivas and Chris Morel 30%. There's a couple of guys a little scrappier, Nick Madrigal, Horner, and Rafi Ortega, but I'll take 6 out of 9 giggity for the strikeout stuff. So yeah, Woodruff's in a big spot to have a big game.
Yeah, it's a team that I think you can target all day long with right-handed pitching for strikeout upside. There's, like you said, a couple good bats in there. Ian Happ, Suzuki, certainly. Franmil Reyes, for all his flaws, has plenty of power, but he's also got a 35% strikeout rate. That's a guy I want to target with Brandon Woodruff. 28.8% strikeout rate, over 102 and 2/3 for Woodruff this year. Definitely a guy I want to throw some shares of. But like you said, 22% I might be around the field, right in line with that on FanDuel. I can agree with maybe undercut a little bit on DK and throw some shares toward like you, Darvish, or somebody like that. So makes some sense there. What about stacks in this one? Are you grabbing Brewer shares against a lefty? That's a spot I typically like to get to. Looks like the field's there a little bit, but certainly playable.
Yeah. Willie Adames, Andrew McCutchen, Hunter Renfroe are the 3 specifically that are guys I'm interested in. But yeah, I'll definitely have some onslaught stacks rotated through. Smiley doesn't scare me. The bullpen doesn't scare me. The Brewers' inconsistencies do. My boy James from FC, I see him tweet raging every night. But on paper, I got to go with what's on paper. I'm there. That and 2 through 4 specifically.
Yeah, Adames, Hunter Renfroe, and Rowdy Tellez all above average for me in the home run model. And then McCutchen and Yelich just pushing the magic number there. Luis Urias in the 6th spot, not far behind. And some of those guys, mid-single digit ownership, fair prices. That's a spot I'm definitely going to have probably an exorbitant amount of, like the power in the Brewers lineup. Any reason to go to Cubby shares against Woodruff and all that popularity, or are they just kind of off the board against the premium strikeout pitcher?
Woodruff does have a 4x FIP this year against righties, a 1.57 home run per 9. If you just want a Cinderella share of a team against a 40% owned pitcher, 1% will get you above the field. I'm not, but I can understand people with that mindset tonight. Just
okay. And yeah, look, you're taking a very specific angle at the slate, so do it knowing what you're doing. But yeah, you're looking at like the Ian Happs, the Suzukis, maybe of the world, the Chris Morels, although he's, don't love that he hits 9th. You'd like to get him in a better spot in that lineup, but you do get the wraparound quality out of it. But like you said, not necessarily a spot for me. Let's keep on rolling. We've got the Atlanta Braves, Charlie Morton on the hill. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts about Morton in this matchup, taking on the St. Louis Cardinals, a very good offense, a low strikeout offense in general. The Cards answering back with an interesting pitcher in their own right. Our former guy, Jordan Montgomery, who I think we both still wish was on our baseball team and not the St. Louis Cardinals, but he's not drawing all that much attention for a guy who's been basically pitching lights out since arriving in St. Louis. What are you doing with these two pitchers? I think they're both at least somewhat semi-interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this is Gundacker 101 because there's 2 pitchers that certainly have I still don't know how much I'm buying into Montgomery's long-term ceiling game to game, but Charlie Morton has just been nuts with it. 30% K rate to right, basically overall 30% K rate. But the inverse is the Cardinals are pretty doggone good. Did Arenado only take 1 day off for a baby? Wow.
He's 1 day on the paternity list. Gotta love it. That's a ball player. He's on my dynasty team too, and he just earned his spot on that dynasty team. I had so many guys this year go out for paternity leave, and they take 4 or 5 days. Arenado, he was there for like 15 minutes, saw the kid. He probably tried to get back in the lineup last night.
That's a baby. All right, Lou, I'm back. But yeah, I think so. This is one of the games where because I respect all four sides, I had to play the numbers, and that's where I really lean on the Stokastic top pitchers, top stacks tool. So we'll start with the top stacks tool, and we'll look at St. Louis, and St. Louis is coming in at less than 1% owned, right, as a stack. So we don't have to give up much to be there. And same is true with the inverse. To a lesser extent, the Atlanta Braves at 2% owned against a lefty. I don't think would ever expect something like that. So this is easy to attack, easy to play, because I don't need to get to 8-10% just to have a little leverage. You can dabble with the 4 and 6%, be 4-6 times the field, and get access to really talented offenses. So that's probably what I'll do. I'll 4-5x the field there, and then with the pitching, I'm more inclined to be attached to Charlie Morton because of his near 30% K rate. I'm okay with undercutting the field. I like the 15% number that our top stack tool is spitting out. And then Jordan Montgomery, I don't trust him yet to be this dominant force. And I do got a lot of respect for this Atlanta Braves offense. So at 5 to 6, 7%, I think it's fair to land there if you are, cranking 150 out. I probably don't get to Montgomery in 50 or 20 or less though.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'll have just a few shares, but it might be, it's easy enough, I think, to push beyond the field, at least on FanDuel. DK, he's 7.5% for 8,800 on FanDuel at 94, only 1.1%. I do think there's enough strikeout upside. The Braves are dangerous against everybody. It is an all four corners game for me. I'll grab a share of Braves for every share of Jordan Montgomery I have, but at 1.1%, there's enough believability in the strikeout upside, I think, now at this point, because they have made a discernible change. They've got him. He was throwing like 50% sinkers with the Yanks, and they took 20 percentage points basically. And now they have him throwing the four seamer like 20% of the time and the sinker only 30% of the time. And it seems to have made a major impact for him. So I'm curious to see if it holds up. Definitely, like you said, not completely proven, but it's an interesting spot. So at 1% ownership, I'll grab a few additional shares, maybe BB on the field. Agree with you on Morton. What about the bats on the Cardinals side of this one? You mentioned the Braves going, fairly low owned, easy to get to. Are you drawing shares of the Cards against Charlie Morton here? They're also very low owned.
Yeah, and it's more of a talent thing than a matchup thing. This has just been a really good team through and through. Goldie and Arenado both have cases for National League MVP. Specifically Morton, big, strikeouts and ground balls. He does suffer with high line drive rates, over 22% to both sides of the plate. So if I'm playing the Cardinals, I'm really hoping for barrel doubles and just keep the line moving. And then maybe we tap into, their bullpen's really good, but it's a bet on talent at almost no ownership. And I think I'd take that every slate.
Yeah, they've just been on that list all year. Both of these teams, when these teams are under-owned, I want to be there. And these are not guys that are going to knock them off of that pedestal, in my opinion, as far as the pitching matchup. So I will draw shares of both sides. Let's look at the Giants and the Twins. Before we do that, though, let me do a quick last piece of business here. The Herbert promo, NFL preseason is well underway. And honestly, it's probably winding down at this point. I know that Hard Knocks has gone through 3 episodes because I watched them all this morning. But the NFL preseason is rolling along. We've got DFS preseason projections for you. We're giving them to you for $7, but that's only through Sunday, August 29th, which I believe is not a real date because today is Saturday the 27th. So it's through Sunday. It's through I don't know. It's either through Sunday or Monday, one or the other. The promo code is Herbert, all caps, gets you $7 access to the preseason NFL projections. Good luck with that one. If you don't get access on Monday, email the news guy and tell him I said it's okay. All right, let's move on to the next one here. Giants against the Twins. Giants have Alex Cobb on the mound, not drawing any attention on either site, not drawing any attention from me. Decent strikeout rate for him, though, on the course of the season. So I'm curious to see what you think. Twins answering back with Sonny Gray. He's drawing middling attention for a mid-range price. Also a decent strikeout rate for him. So how much Cobb are you getting to? How much Sonny Gray are you getting
to? Sonny Gray was the only one I was getting to.
Okay.
Usually I will dabble with Alex Cobb, but today just didn't land in anything for me. The metrics are fine. 3.16 expected ERA, 24% K rate. So certainly not a him thing, more of the projection just didn't land on him thing. And Sonny Gray, kind of similar 24% K rate. The maybe earlier I had some weather concerns. It looks like that's going to ease up now. There's likely to be some rain a couple hours into the game, but it should start clean and probably play a minimal impact on starters if it's a pitcher's duel. So 8,400 on DK though. I'm more in on Sonny Gray, but I understand being at Cobb. I didn't get there. Sonny Gray,
I'm not getting to much of it either, and it doesn't look like a ton of the field is, and it's kind of a weird spot. Like the price seems like it should work, and he's just getting edged out a little bit in this one. So I'm interested to see where that goes.
Looking at our DraftKings top pitchers total, we're getting him a 10.5% chance of being an optimal pitcher with 1% ownership. So maybe we force in some of that positive leverage. It's one of the most positive. He is the most positive leverage pitcher on the slate.
Okay, so that
maybe the weather was scaring
to push a few extra shares of on the at least in tournaments. I mean, that's that kind of leverage on a pitcher with a 24% strikeout rate against a lineup that does have some strikeouts in it. You know, it's offset by Luis Arias and his absurd 7.5% at the top, and then like Gio Urshela, who's not much of a hitter, Max Kepler, who's got some power, 16 and 15%, but everybody else, you know, lowish 20s. So there's some strikeouts there, maybe a little bit on the bone for Alex Cobb. What about the stacks in this one? You go to any Giants here against Sonny Gray, gettable pitcher over time. And then same question for the Twins side of this against Alex Cobb.
Nah, usually I'll take the Giants plunge if it's against a beatable pitcher, but we're dealing with platoon pinch hit risk through and through. So probably not onslaught stacking Giants here. Maybe a kiss or two of Listella, just a leadoff guy at min price. But I'm not invested in a full stack. Twins, I'm a little bit more curious with because I think they round out a little bit better as a stack, but still missing out on Byron Buxton. But Correa, Polanco, you mentioned Arise. If I play Arise, it's usually not for homer, 3 hits, something like that. Yeah. But a little bit, probably not 5-man. They'll probably like 2 or 3-man stacks, and I'll sub stack them because this is definitely a depleted overall lineup. But Correa and Polanco, I think, are a good handcuff to throw in the blender.
Yeah, for sure. 2 of the better hitters in that lineup. They'll come up a little bit more for me typically. Not through anything I do, but just I think through the like how these guys on the Giants aggregate numbers and everything. I just tend to get to less of them regardless of how they're priced, and it looks like that's going to work out the same way for me. And then I'll have some shares of the guys that you mentioned, then some Jose Miranda on the other side of it, maybe some Max Kepler, but not one of my prime targets on the board here. Let's move on to our Yankees, who are still out in Oakland, drawing a little bit more attention today than they have been over the last couple of days, going up against Adam Oller, and eminently gettable pitcher, 4.66% home run rate, 13.3% strikeout rate, 11.8% walks. That is targetable. Yanks have Domingo Germán on the hill. He's getting a little bump from going up against a terrible Athletics lineup. So I assume no Oller for you. Are you getting the Domingo Germán and then just roll that into talking about the Yankee stack?
Yeah, Germán's intriguing because his price is so dangerously low against a bad team that I'm intrigued. I'm still worried about. I'm worried about his pitch count. He was overly efficient against the Mets in that last start, and there was a lot of results efficient. There was still a lot of fly balls that found gloves. So we know he's certainly somebody that can serve with power. But I would like to believe that more than 86, 85 pitches is something that we can lean on. And last night, Garrett Cole went deep enough, and this is a bullpen that had a big reset. They had a day off. And they had the kid, he got sent down, I think, ate a lot of the game. So they got some bullpen arms that could use some work today if Germán doesn't go deep. And I imagine that's kind of what Booney was preparing for. So 5 innings, though, if 5 innings on SP2 is something that you would take against this A's, I think it's very, very viable. I don't think I would get there on FanDuel just because of the potential absence of the quality start eligibility, but I think on DK SP2 for me, no Oller. Stack wise, yes, it definitely should be noted that Giancarlo Stanton's not in the lineup tonight, a day off after coming back, and Benintendi is leading off, so that's a really good spot for him. Oswaldo Cabrera is turning into one of my favorite players in baseball, and he's still almost free on both sites after a really good game yesterday. So looking like one of my higher owned players right now. So I do like him. And then Athletics, no, but watching Langoliers, this kid's got something. So I'm going to continue to take some shots on him. Right now in short sample, 1.0 OPS in the majors against righties. That's probably not going to hang on, but he looks like he's fitting the part pretty well. So I'll keep him in the blender going forward.
All right. Named after an old Stephen King book, if I remember correctly, The Langoliers. Don't think I ever read that one, though. But I think they made it into a TV movie that I watched, and it was about airplanes, I want to say. Anyway, yeah, no A's really for me, but definitely some Yanks. Getting to a lot of Aaron Judge. He's the most popular player on both sites in that lineup, but he's still top of my board just with all the ridiculous upside. I'm getting massive home run upside numbers for the Yanks as well, just going up against Aller and all that power that he yields. So I'll have plenty of shares of them. During the offseason, Gleyber Torres for Pablo Lopez, you say yes?
Oh yeah, Gleyber was. I mean, this is biggest story
on the board at the deadline.
I mean, he should have been, especially if we got two of the best shortstop prospects in the world that we can't trade. Then he should be on the board.
Yeah. Apparently, the Yanks walked away from it at the deadline. That's a toughie. I do like Gleyber. I still do want him on the team, but that's a really good pitcher to bring in.
That makes sense to me because when Jordan Montgomery got traded, I thought that meant there was a pitcher coming back somewhere.
Yeah.
So I could see a Pablo Lopez deal fall through, or even a Carlos Rodon in the moment fall through, which then we lost a good pitcher that we could have, or a pitcher that we could have used.
Yes, absolutely. And that makes a ton of sense. Yeah. To have the Montgomery have been a piece of that and then something else fell through, because otherwise that move is still inexplicable in my mind. But that's neither here nor there. We've got one game left to talk about, 5 minutes up until lock. 7 minutes actually still, which is good because I haven't put my lineups in. Guardians with Zach Plesac on the mound in Seattle to take on the frisky Mariners, who have Luis Castillo going up against the lowish strikeout Guardians here. But Castillo, premium strikeout option, one of the better pitchers in the league, drawing a lot of attention in the 10,000s on DK, 30% owned, 10-8 on FanDuel, only 16.5%. Is he low owned on FanDuel? Is that an interesting spot to you? And then just how much of them are you getting to on the DK slate?
For Castillo, right?
For Castillo, yeah.
Sorry. Okay. No, I was typing up the
talk up Plesac if you want. Guardians, by all means, sell us Plesac.
Yeah, I think there's some room for Castillo to surprise us, I guess, at 16% ownership. It's still the third highest owned, I believe. Mm-hmm. So it's not like he's not owned, but 16% on this big of a slate in the shadows of Woodruff and Darvish. I like Darvish, I think, pound for pound the most because of his high floor, high pitch count, 6-7 innings. But we did kind of create some pessimism in Woodruff with his xFIP to righties and some power numbers. So Castillo could surprise us here. And Castillo is in a tough spot. So I don't normally pick on the Guardians here, but I think at that 15-16% ownership, I'll have a couple shares and just hope he keeps this hot streak alive. I also just realized there's no Luis Castillo that's completely nerfed my spreadsheet. So I have to bring up Fancrest.
Oh, that's is that the Pirates one? I hate the multi-name.
I looked down, I saw a 5.19 expected ERA and 11% K rate. I'm like, wait a minute.
Oh, he's on the Padres, actually, I think. The relief pitcher on the Padres. Yeah, there's multiple guys. Or maybe that's Luis Garcia that I'm thinking of. That's a Padre. There's multiple of each of those names, and it gets really irritating. Let's talk stacks. Are you going to any Guardian stacks against Luis Castillo here? And then how much are you leaning into the Mariners going up against Zach Plesac? I assume you're not rostering Plesac. We had a chuckle about that a minute ago. So are you targeting him with Seattle bats?
Yeah, for sure. J-Rod, Jesse Winker got ejected last night. Mitch Haniger, Eugenio Suarez, Ty France, 1 through 5 fits together pretty nicely. And outside of Julio Rodriguez, they're medium price, so that might keep enough hands out of the cookie jar. And then for the Mariners or for the Guardians against Castillo, it's more of a bet on talent than betting on the pitcher to fail. And the talent is in Jose Ramirez for me. And then Josh Naylor would probably make the mix for me. And Andres Gimenez has had a really good couple weeks here. So those would be the core pieces for me, but it's more of a talent than a matchup thing.
Okay. Yeah. Guardians really getting their money's worth from that Lindor deal with Rosario and Jimenez playing pretty damn well this season. So like both of those guys in the short term and the long term, if you're going to Guardians, makes sense there. On the Mariners side, for me, some Julio Rodriguez off the top, Jesse Winker, Mitch Haniger, Eugenio Suarez, obviously, if you're going there. It's a pretty good lineup really from top to bottom. Is there anybody on the Mariners that you're just not getting to, like maybe Kurt Casale at the bottom, but I guess if you need a DK catcher, is there anybody you wouldn't go to in that stack?
It would be Kirk Casale. I mean, Casale's 2,700, and we have 2K catchers that are not at home in a 9-hole. So, yeah, probably definitely Casale is expendable.
Okay, makes some sense. All right, looks like we got 2 or 3 minutes left here. That brings us to the end of the discussion game by game here. But let's go favorite stacks, favorite pitchers. Gun, who's your favorite? Give me 2 of your favorite stacks, like a premium stack and like a value stack.
So looking at the top stacks tool, I don't want to give a high owned stack. So let's see.
Yeah,
I would like, man, probably the Orioles. They're not picking up any attention. I think they're a well-rounded team with power up speed.
Someone else right now.
So Orioles is kind of the behind or the off the wall stack, and then my favorite stack at the top. The Padres. Hate to be basic with it, but the Padres somehow still give us a little bit of positive leverage too. 10% ownership on 11.5% top stack. So not massive, but they're not over-owned, and it's a really good spot on the road against a beatable pitcher. As far as pitching goes, Yu Darvish looking like my favorite option. I'm fine with Domingo on DK as a SP2, but Domingo's one of those guys, you watch him long enough, man, it's hard to trust. He'll let up some lasers. But Darvish at the top for me.
Yep, makes a ton of sense. I think that gave me enough time to drop the lineups in there. So
you need some more time?
Just put them in. We're all good. I appreciate it. That was perfect. Woodruff for me, definitely, despite the chalk, I just love that spot. I think it's a little bit more targetable than the KC spot, but I agree Darvish is a fantastic play with the ownership offset and everything there. I'm going to have a decent amount of chalky Yankees as well tonight. It looks like I'm riding with along with the public on a lot of the main plays. So hopefully some of the offbeat ones will be differentiators. I just threw in a chunk of Orioles when you brought them back up. We talked about that early in the show. I'm glad you mentioned it there because I didn't have enough of them to be a difference maker until now. So great spot there. And then maybe a little bit of contrarian Braves and Cards. I want to throw that back into the mix too, because I think I was getting to some of them despite good pitching, just 2 good offenses, very low owned. So another interesting spot to bring up there. That brings us up to the end of the show here. Gun, tell them where they can find you.
Twitter, YouTube /Gundacker. Hit that thumbs up, chat. Stop slacking.
Yeah, come on, guys. Get in there. Hit that thumbs up. Oh, somebody threw in a super chat. Jorge Giacomes threw in one from NASCAR too. $10. Favorite low-owned stack and pitcher. What teams are you fading that are between mid to high-owned? So low-owned stack, low-owned pitcher, you just kind of hit. So what teams are you fading stack-wise that are like middle of the board?
Looking at the top ownership. Let's see. I guess I'm under the field on full red stacks, and we got them at right up there with the Brewers. So okay. I don't have no reds, but I'm under the field on the 9% onslaught number.
Justifiable. I like it. It's a terrible baseball team. I don't love going to them. I was getting a little bit of them. I like the Brewers side of that. Those 2 teams a lot better. So hopefully that answered Jorge's question there. Thanks for the super chat, guys. We appreciate everybody hanging out. Hit that like button. Only 126 of them. We had a bunch of people in here, so make sure to mash that button. It helps us out a lot. Get your ISO up out there. Gun, killer show. Really appreciate it, buddy. Great job. And yeah, I think that's everything we had to do. Good luck out there, gang.